Well, thank you for being here today. Mayor and I are very excited to introduce the BRT as it goes public today. This is going to be one of the most transformational transportation projects that this region has ever undertaken. We've been working on this for a number of years. We know that the corridor coming between Oakland and downtown Pittsburgh, and you can see right here in front of the PPG Paints Arena, I'm sure every one of us have been stuck in that gridlock for a 2 or 3 traffic light turnovers to get through there. We know that downtown Pittsburgh and Oakland are the 2 biggest job centers in the region, and number 2 and number 3 in the state outside of downtown Philadelphia, and continuing to grow. Companies, people, organizations all want to be in those 2 neighborhoods as they continue to grow with jobs and technology and all the things that we're doing. 60% of our transit riders come through this corridor. Right now, when they take the trip from, say, Oakland by the University of Pittsburgh into the heart of downtown Pittsburgh in rush hour, it takes them about anywhere from 18 to 25 minutes. 18 on a good day, probably 25 or even more on a more crowded day. Even if you're in your car, it's going to take you almost that much time to do that. But then when you're done making your trip, you got to do something with that car. Meaning you got to park it, you got to find a place to park, you got to pay for that. A bus rapid transit system, which is, you know, the word bus is in there, but it really is more than a transit entity, or more of a transit development. It is really a community development that is going to improve for everybody. The BRT, like I said, you'll get on that vehicle, will take you 10 minutes during rush hour to get from the Cathedral of Learning into the heart of downtown Pittsburgh, and then in the afternoon to make the return trip. In downtown Pittsburgh, around the core of where this is going to hit, we're going to probably have 40 to 60% of the buses removed from the streets of downtown Pittsburgh. So that will open up a lot of congestion that we all live with. If you are any type of mobility rider, whether you're using transit, whether you're in a vehicle, whether you want to ride your bike, or whether you want to be whether you're a pedestrian, all methods of mobility will be improved by the BRT development. It'll be safer, it'll be faster, it'll be more reliable, and it'll allow people to use the system in a more efficient manner. This will also help develop neighborhoods that really are just starting to come, with development. And I'm talking about Uptown and the Hill District, which are through the corridor. But as you'll see with the connections and the options that we're going to try to consider as a community, if we extend from the core, we can start to reach out and connect places like Wilkinsburg and Homewood, neighborhoods like Greenfield and Hazelwood, that we can be connected in some way to be able to get to the jobs that are growing in a big way. So they're going to do a presentation, and I really want to thank the Port Authority and the Mayor's Office, City Planning, have really put in a lot of work and gotten a lot of good feedback throughout the community of the different stakeholder groups that have been involved in this. We showed some of the stakeholders yesterday, many of the stakeholders, and I have to tell you the response was very, very positive from even some folks that might early on have been a little bit skeptical of what this could entail. We're looking at a project that depending on which option we choose, might be anywhere from $200 million to $240 million in cost. A lot of that cost obviously is buying the vehicles. The vehicles will be a little different. They'll be electric vehicles, and they won't look like a bus. They'll really look like a train in many ways. So this is something I think it's very exciting for this community to really engage in and improve our mobility, make our air quality better. That's also a big part of what we're going to be doing on the environmental side. So it's really an exciting thing. You will also be given the PowerPoint after this. That will be available, so you'll have the whole slideshow that's available to show all the different graphics and some of the numbers that will come up. And I know the Port Authority with Amy and Justin are going to give kind of a brief presentation of with that. And with that, I want to have the mayor, Bill Peduto, come up. The mayor's been a great partner in this. I mean, this has been a big initiative of his as he continues to develop, neighborhoods in the city that, are really starting to really come back in a big way. So, Mayor, did you want to jump up and talk about this as well?
Just wanted to say a couple of things. Number one, we've been talking about this for 10 years. I just have to give credit to the county executive and his team. His staff have been able to turn this project around in little less than 2 years. Now, the first question everyone's going to ask is, why not build light rail? Why don't we have a light rail system that we're building out? The difference is the $200 to $240 million price tag versus the $3 billion price tag. The difference is this system being operational in the next 4 years by 2021 versus a system that would be operational in about 15 years. So this is an option that allows for 60% of everyone that uses the Port Authority comes through this corridor to get better accessibility, more reliable transportation, and at the same time modernize a system that will make the East End, Oakland, the Hill, Uptown, and Downtown safer for transit riders, motorists, people who bike, and pedestrians. So I'm going to stop at that point, but again, I want to thank the county executive and his staff and the Port Authority for the leadership that they've shown over these past 2 years to get us to this point.
Justin, Amy, it's all yours.
There you go. So to bring everybody up to speed on the project, we'll go through, we'll start out with some of the decisions that we'll be needing to make in the very immediate future. And then we'll talk about some of the options that we're going to be taking to the public and stakeholders, and how we're going to be engaging with folks through both in-person and online engagement. And then we'll talk a little bit about what the engagement will be going forward beyond the next month or so. Some of the key decision points that we're talking about right now. So with the street alignments, we're looking at a couple different options through Oakland, whether BRT would exist all on 5th Avenue or it would be split between 5th and Forbes. We'll go through some of the maps and it'll be clear to understand what that means. And then there are also service options. So once we figure out which street these are going to be operating on, we have 4 different options for how the actual BRT service would be aligned and where it would go. So in a nutshell, what will this project be? The first goal, of course, is a fast transit system. So saving time on trips from downtown to Oakland, to the East End using dedicated transit lanes and dedicated transit signaling. It needs to be frequent, so we're looking at 5-minute or better headways during peak hours, so that you can reliably catch a bus at anytime you need to. As the county executive mentioned, the vehicles will be very distinct, so they're branded vehicles. They have features that are kind of above and beyond what you find on a normal bus. The stations also have more features, so a larger station that has real-time arrival information, ticket vending machines, and other features that are way above and beyond what you find at a normal station today. And of course connected, so connecting all of our major job centers, linking downtown, uptown, Oakland, and points in the East End with a rapid one-seat ride. So some basic elements of a bus rapid transit project include a lot of the things that you find on the screen here. So mentioned the unique vehicles. They're operating in dedicated BRT lanes. They have signals that allow for priority so that the BRT vehicle moves as quickly as possible. The stations are upgraded, but it's not just about the transit. There's also other amenities nearby, bike amenities. We've got plans to manage parking smarter, and we have economic development opportunities that open themselves up around station areas. So as mentioned, the peak travel time, so these comparisons here are the different times that you would spend in different vehicles in different scenarios. So today you would spend on average 18 minutes up to 25 minutes, or sometimes even more on a bus. That worst case scenario happens somewhat frequently if it's poor weather, there's a lot of congestion, there's an event going on. It's unpredictable. So The car drive time around 14 minutes, but as mentioned, that does not include finding a place to park and spending all the time to do it. So what we're projecting with BRT, using those dedicated lanes and the signals that are dedicated to BRT and the consolidated station spacing, we're projecting about 10 minutes in the actual vehicle. So it's a significant savings over the time spent today. Some key points about the actual infrastructure alignments. The way it would function downtown, it's actually somewhat similar to the way that Oakland buses circulate today, except the loop would be reversed. The BRT vehicles would be coming into downtown on 5th Avenue, making a right turn onto Liberty, a further right turn onto 6th Avenue and heading outbound. This is a zoomed in version of what that looks like. So why this particular alignment? So this is actually, as I mentioned, similar to the current operations, so people are already familiar with where Oakland buses go. So building up really prominent station areas will only further solidify that. And we're looking to locate station areas near other rapid services, so linking with the light rail system and other stations that serve the busways in the region. Just more efficient to make right turns, especially in downtown. You know how some intersections can get gridlocked, so if we're shifting that pattern, anything we can do to speed this service up is something that we're looking at doing. The pedestrian circulation around the crazy intersection at Liberty Avenue, 6th Avenue, and 7th Street, we would improve that through the Wood Street Station area and try to make that circulation a bit better. We know that we need to provide safe pedestrian access across Liberty Avenue to serve the cultural district, so that is a key part of that station area plan. Just overall, more efficient movements for BRT as it exits downtown via 6th Avenue, another key pinch point that I'll talk about in the next slide. So this transition area between downtown and uptown is another very unique Pittsburgh situation where you've got multiple key arterial streets that are kind of crisscrossing each other at strange angles. So what this BRT system would do, exiting downtown via 6th Avenue, currently it makes a right from 5th Avenue. This intersection at 6th and 5th is very congested, so this new alignment would allow BRT vehicles to circulate through here a bit easier. And you can also see the green lines on the map represent where we would be building dedicated bike infrastructure as well. A few brief notes about Uptown. We've been working over the past 18 months or so on a plan called the Uptown Eco Innovation District. It's been a major initiative that not only helps us to understand what we should do with the streets in Uptown and helping to solve a lot of Uptown's mobility issues, and also the process has helped us to identify other projects that we could implement to further capitalize on the potential for new development in Uptown as a result of bus rapid transit. Looking at infill housing development, better stormwater management, things like safer intersections, more street trees, better lighting. These are all things that Uptown community members have identified as major issues that we are hoping to address through this project. Of course, BRT station areas being key among those. And one of the recommendations of this neighborhood plan that we've been working on with the community is to implement bus rapid transit as a way to address a number of community priorities. So one of the things that we've identified through that planning process is what the alignment in Uptown should be. So just a quick rendering of a multimodal reworking of Forbes Avenue. So a section of Forbes Avenue where you see a car lane, a dedicated BRT lane with a station that has an accessible entrance, and then a bike lane that circulates behind it with more street trees and better lighting. So part of that has also been helping us to identify what the alignment should be. So looking at circulation, we've got everything, all modes from bike, car, BRT, everything flowing towards Oakland on Forbes Avenue and inbound towards downtown on 5th Avenue, similar to how it functions today. But the difference between how it functions today and what this would be are, again, a balanced type of allocation of street space. Every mode gets its own dedicated space. It allows for, intuitive circulation, meaning everything flows in the same direction. So if you're on a bike, you're on a BRT vehicle, you're driving, you know which way you're going, all the modes are in the same direction. It allows for those in-street island stations like you saw in the rendering. We have more space in places that aren't station areas to do innovative stormwater management approaches. Uptown is a key area for PWSA in terms of stormwater management, and so we're helping to address some of those problems through this project as well. Of course, having the BRT on both streets spreads out the economic development potential, having stations on both streets. Looking at the Uptown to Oakland transition area, another one of our very Pittsburgh pinch points where you've got a lot of different roads converging in one place. We're looking at, again, same circulation with BRT on Forbes Avenue towards Oakland and towards downtown on Fifth Avenue. Some notes for this section. What we're looking to do is to add capacity to Forbes Avenue between Boulevard of the Allies and Craft Avenue. So this section around here, if you're familiar, as you make that turn from on Forbes Avenue, headed uphill towards Oakland, it's a pretty notorious spot for backups. There's a lot of congestion at that point. So through this project, we would be adding a BRT lane as you approach Craft Avenue, but also adding more space for the road in general so that overall circulation into Oakland happens much smoother than it does today. It allows for that reliability of the BRT, but it benefits all modes. So it minimizes overall what we're calling person delay for everybody heading into Oakland. So what we're looking to do with that capacity addition there is basically reducing the travel time in that section from, say, around Birmingham Bridge to Craft Avenue by between 50 and 60%, which is significant over what the experience is today. And then in Oakland, we're looking at two different options. We have some notes about each of them that I'll share with you, but one of them, what we're calling option one, is having all the BRT on Fifth Avenue. Zoom in version of that, and you can see how that operates. You've got the contraflow bus lane that exists today. We would be maintaining that, but adding station areas. We have a dedicated inbound BRT lane that would be added. Bike infrastructure in this scenario would be on Forbes Avenue. Through some of the work we've done with our stakeholders and other community partners, as well as analysis that we've done with the Port Authority, we have some concerns about it, and we want to make sure that as we go forward with the public process over the coming month, that we're on point with this, and we want to verify that these observations are correct. So, if anybody's familiar with how the contraflow bus lane works today in Oakland, there's a fence along Fifth Avenue on the southern side for a reason. It's confusing for visitors, and there are quite a few of them, obviously, with the hospitals and the university. So that conflict there, in this scenario, would be maintained, and it's somewhat of a concern in terms of people walking in that area. In this scenario, all the transit would be moved to Fifth Avenue, which folks on Forbes Avenue and the business owners there have told us they really like the exposure of having transit riders at their front door and the good visibility of foot traffic that provides. The bike infrastructure through Oakland, vital connection, getting downtown to Oakland via bike safely. It's a bit more capital intensive to do that on Forbes Avenue here. And again, the sidewalks on the southern side of Fifth Avenue, pretty narrow. So for overall pedestrian circulation, it's not ideal. The other side of this is option two, where we split the BRT between Fifth and Forbes, similar to operations in Uptown. We'd be maintaining that same flow. This option, you can see, kind of formalizes what is almost a de facto transit lane now on the south curb of Forbes Avenue on the right side if you're headed in that direction. We would formalize that as a BRT lane. We would maintain the inbound traffic for BRT on Fifth Avenue. And then where there's currently a contraflow bus lane on Fifth Avenue, we would change that into a two-way protected cycle track. So again, balancing out the modes in Oakland and kind of spreading it out between Fifth and Forbes. The benefits of this alignment are kind of the flip side of what some of our concerns were with the other one. So everything is flowing with traffic, minimizes conflict and confusion that happens on Fifth Avenue with the contraflow lane. It makes it easier to implement bus priority signals if you have the traffic flowing in consistent progression. Transit exposure, the riders are on Forbes Avenue and patronizing the businesses in Oakland, and we just have better circulation on Forbes Avenue for people getting to the BRT station. So something to consider as we move forward with the community. The other side of this is the service, which is new in terms of our discussions with the community. So Amy Silverman will be discussing that.
Thanks, Justin. Justin. Good morning, everyone. So in addition to those two infrastructure options that Justin walked us through in Oakland, another key thing that we've been working on over the last several months is what to do with the actual BRT service. Where will it end and how will it work best? So to give us some context here, our existing transit service in and around Oakland is very, very complex. We have 19 bus routes, and as the Mayor and County Executive mentioned, over 60,000 bus riders every weekday use those bus routes. They go all over the East End, including the north and south side, so we don't have a simple one-route solution that's really easy that would accomplish this benefit for all of these riders. So we had to look at a lot of different ways of making this service work best for as many people as possible. So we started out by looking at existing research on what is most important to transit riders. What we found are the two key things that a BRT would certainly accomplish are frequency and reliability. But beyond that, we have other things like travel time. Do you have to transfer, or do you have a one-seat ride? What are your station amenities? Do you have a ticket vending machine or real-time information to tell you when the bus is coming? So lots of different things that are really important to transit riders, and we use those. We used actually 15 different metrics. We're able to come up with as many possible ways to make this BRT successful as we possibly could. And we ended up with 42 different service options. So a very data-driven, analysis-based process. We looked at all of these sort of crazy Excel matrix of what it looked like behind the scenes. And so what we're moving forward with into our public engagement period that we're beginning today is 4 of those service options. So the first we are calling the Core BRT Plus 2 branch. It scored number 1 amongst those 42 options, and that is a downtown through uptown into Oakland, connecting to our East Busway and ending in Wilkinsburg, BRT. That would also have 2 branches. One branch would continue out Forbes Avenue into the East End and serve Squirrel Hill and terminate in Greenfield. And the other would continue out 5th Avenue into the East End and then go up Highland Avenue and end in Highland Park. And I'll show maps of each of these after we get through this part. Our number 2 scoring option amongst those 42 is what we're calling the Core BRT Plus 1 branch. So that is everything that was mentioned prior, but without that Highland Park branch. So basically a core BRT route that ends on our East Busway in Wilkinsburg with a Squirrel Hill branch ending in Greenfield. The number 3 scoring option is what we're referring to as the Core BRT. So this is just a simple single route that goes from downtown through uptown into Oakland, connects to our East Busway via the Neville ramp, and then ends in Wilkinsburg. And finally, our 4th, we're calling the Core BRT Short. It actually scored 26th out of the 42 options, but it is sort of the simplest heart in terms of infrastructure of what we've been talking about for the last few years with this project. And so it's really important to include that in the equation as well. This would just go from downtown through uptown into Oakland. And then it's also really important to note that amongst those 42 options that we looked at, we included our current service as one of those options, so sort of a no-build option, and that ranked 39 out of the 42 options. So any one of these 4 BRT service options that we move forward with would be a significant improvement over the existing conditions today. So let's look at them in a little bit more detail. So we have a schematic map here. You can see our light rail lines and our South Busway coming from the south, our West Busway in green here, and then our East Busway in purple. What we have in orange is our Core BRT Short. So I'm going to go backwards now and start with the shorter one and then leave on the longer ones. So you can see coming from downtown through uptown with 3 or 4 stations, and then in Oakland with 3 stations as well, ending at Belfield Avenue. Under this proposal, the peak frequency would be every 5 minutes. Our second, our Core BRT, you can now see that orange line is extended. We have a few more stations in Oakland at Craig and 5th and then Neville, and then extending out our East Busway to serve the Shadyside, East Liberty, Homewood, and Wilkinsburg communities, and ending in Wilkinsburg. This would also come about every 5 minutes during peak. Our third option, now we see that branch. So this is our Core BRT Plus 1 branch. You'll notice the line coming out Forbes Avenue here is a dashed line. The reason for that is because once we move out Forbes Avenue, we no longer have that dedicated BRT only lane. We would be in mixed traffic starting kind of around Craig Street or right before you get to Carnegie Mellon. And in this area, to keep that reliability of the BRT, we would propose certain intersections have transit priority signals and queue jumps like this, so that the bus can continue moving quickly and reliably through that corridor. Under this scenario, our peak frequency actually moves up to about 3 minutes, so a bus would be about every 3 minutes, and that's because we get a lot more riders this way, so we need to be able to withstand that volume. And then finally, our core BRT plus 2 branches. We now see another dashed line coming out 5th Avenue here and then going up into Highland Park. Same thing on that dashed line. We're now in mixed traffic with other vehicles, but we would have queue jumps and transit signal priority in order to keep the BRT moving quickly and reliably. Under this scenario, also in that core area, we'd be about every 3 minutes during peak. So other than, oh, and this is just our on-street map, so actual schematic. So other than where these 4 different service options go, we have a few other key differences between them. So first of all, connected neighborhoods. Obviously you can see on the map with some of these options we're connecting a lot more places than others, so our core BRT short may only be connecting downtown, uptown, and Oakland, whereas all the way at the other end of the spectrum, our core BRT with 2 branches connects 24 different neighborhoods, municipalities within that rapid 1-seat ride to Oakland and downtown. The next 2 columns show our existing riders under the 8 core bus routes that exist between downtown and Oakland today, and additionally our P3 route, which is our East Busway to Oakland route. How many of those riders today would be able to use the BRT if it all of a sudden existed tomorrow? So without even doing any ridership modeling or projecting, we already would serve between 20 and 31,000 riders on this BRT, just under existing conditions, which serves up to 70% of our existing riders under the BRT. The reduction in travel time increases as we get those broader reaching BRT options, and that's because we have more riders who are able to utilize the benefits of that BRT and save time. And then finally, one added piece we will have with any of these BRT options is we will have people who will need to transfer. And that's because under all 4 of these options, those 8 local bus routes, the 61 series and 71 series you see there at the top of the columns, would no longer go between downtown and Oakland. They would terminate in Oakland. And so as a result, some people in the East End who need to get into downtown would transfer onto the BRT to go into downtown. So that ranges anywhere with the core BRT short from almost 7,000 transfers all the way down to only about 3,000 transfers with the core BRT plus 2 branches. And that actually serves over 90% of our existing riders on those routes. We'll still have direct 1-seat access into downtown or Oakland. So some issues that we still have to address going forward as we move through public engagement on this process. Fare policy is a big key one, especially with those transfers that we just recently touched upon. If you have to transfer and that transfer has a cost to it, that's certainly something that we want to hear from the public on about how best we can work that fare policy. Accessibility concerns. Our access paratransit vehicles drop off on the curb right now, and so adding bus lanes to the curb between downtown and Oakland means that we need to make sure we figure out how best that's going to operate within our paratransit community. Station spacing. So what we're proposing in areas where local buses and the BRT are mixing together is that we have sort of a happy medium of station spacing. So in Oakland, that's something like 1/3 of a mile, and then beyond Oakland for the 2 branch options, that's something like 1/4 of a mile. So in those areas, the local buses and the BRT, if there's overlapping service, would use the same stations. And therefore it's a less stops than we currently have, and so that's an accessibility issue we want to hear about. And then finally, cultural district access. We know that Liberty Avenue can be a challenging one to cross if you have accessibility needs, and so that's certainly something we want to keep forefront of our minds going forward, and with other projects that are happening around Liberty Avenue, we're confident that we can address that. Downtown bus routing changes will likely need to occur in addition to this BRT because we're switching that direction of that bus flow in downtown. Other bus routes will likely also need to be changed as a result. The exact station location and what the design of those stations is still to be worked out. We're not really at that level of detail quite yet. And then finally, loading zone and deliveries and how best, similar to the access paratransit vehicles, how we can best make sure that those still remain successful throughout this corridor with our BRT lanes. And capital cost estimates. I know the Mayor County Executive gave you a range of costs We're still working on really finalizing the detail on those different cost estimates for these 4 service options. I will say that the core with the 2 branches is costing more than just the core on its own, which makes sense. We have more stations to build. But we're hoping to detail that out more as we go forward. So what's happening now? So today, we're entering our public engagement period for those 2 options that we need public input on at this phase. And that is the infrastructure in Oakland. Are we doing the 5th Avenue in both directions, or the 5th and Forbes BRT lanes, and then those 4 service options. So throughout March, we're going to continue going to community group meetings and interviewing key stakeholders. We're going to have a big BRT public open house on April 5th at Alumni Hall in the University of Pittsburgh. We'll get you information on that, of course. And then via our website, portauthority.org, we will have lots of project information and key documents for you to look at, and we will have online survey for public input. And then some of those other details like station design or the really nitty-gritty of sort of starting our engineering process will come with later public engagement and workshops throughout the summer.